becomes more. Before we begin, a few words that really matter. So stay with me for these. Everything you are about to see runs inside an isolated lab that we own and fully control. ATTACKRX is a character. No real company is targeted and no real system is ever touched. We reveal how the attack works for one reason only, so that defenders like you can learn to catch it. Never use anything you learn here against a system you do not own or that you don't have clear written permission to test. Unauthorized access is illegal, and what you choose to do with this knowledge is entirely your responsibility. So let's use it the right way. Learn, secure, and defend. Now let's begin. 2:14 in the morning. Becomes more a file server called FS01 deep inside XCerberous. It's asleep, no users, no jobs, just the hum of the disks. And then one account starts failing to log in once, twice, 10 times, 100, all against the same username, admin, all in the space of a few minutes. Nobody is at that keyboard. Nobody mistyped a password 100 times at 2 in the morning. Something on the outside is trying every key it owns because ATTACKRX already has the one thing that makes this work: a valid username. He learned it during recon. He doesn't know the password, but he doesn't need to know it. He just needs to guess it over and over and over until one guess opens the lock and computers guess fast. Welcome back to Cyber Talks. I'm Gautam and here we play both sides. Becomes more. Today's technique is brute force password guessing in MITRE ATTACK. This is technique T11.0001. It's credential access. The moment the attacker stops looking at your walls and starts trying your keys. So here's the idea. Simply picture a thief with one lock in front of him and a bucket holding 10,000 keys. He tries the first key, nothing, the second, nothing, and he just keeps going key after key after key because the door doesn't get tired and it doesn't call the police. That's password guessing. One account, many passwords, and hold that picture because it's the exact opposite of its cousin, password spraying, which takes one password and tries it against many accounts. Guessing goes deep on one target, spraying goes wide across many. Becomes more tonight. We go deep. Where do those 10,000 keys come from? A word list. The most famous one is called rockyou. Millions of real passwords leaked from an old breach, sorted by how common they are. And here's the uncomfortable truth: people reuse passwords and people pick weak ones. So a word list isn't a wild guess, it's a ranked list of the passwords humans actually choose. Throw enough of them at a weak account and one of them fits. Here's the terrain: the lab network, a domain, a file server FS01 at 10.0.0 tant, sharing files over SMB1, exposed account admin, and ATTACKRX sitting on the network with a word list and a tool. He can't see the password. Becomes more, but he can ask the server the same question 10,000 times. Is it this one? There are two flavors of this, and the difference matters. Online brute force, what we are watching, throws guesses straight at a live service, and the service answers yes or no every time. It's fast to set up, but it's noisy and it's slow because every guess is a full round trip. Offline brute force is different. That's when the attacker has already stolen the hashed passwords and cracks them on their own hardware, silent at millions of guesses a second. Tonight is online, which is loud, which is our chance. So he runs it one command: netexec smb 10.0.0.10-u admin dash p passwords dot connect. Read that carefully. Becomes more lowercase dash u, one username, admin, capital dash p, a whole file of passwords. So this is one account against thousands of guesses, exactly the shape of guessing. And the same idea works anywhere there is a login: hydra against rdp or ssh, crackmap exec against a web form. The tool changes the pattern, does not watch the screen. Line after line comes back red: failure, failure, failure. Each one is a rejected password, and then one line turns green: a plus sign, admin, and a password marked with the word po and 3d. That green line is the whole ball game. One guess out of thousands just worked. Attack RX has valid credentials. He didn't break the door. He found the right key. So that's the attack. Now let's flip the glass and sit down inside the sock. Becomes more. And here's the trap most teams fall into. A single failed login is invisible. It happens all day to everyone. So 14625 event means nothing and nobody watches it. That's the blind spot. The attacker isn't hiding a needle in a haystack. He is throwing the whole haystack at one account. And if you're only ever looking at single events one at a time, you will never see the storm for the raindrops. The signal isn't in any one failure, it's in the count. So we hunt, and the hypothesis is precise. If someone is guessing a password, then one account will collect a burst of failed logons, many failures, one target, one source, a tiny window of time. Becomes more on Windows. Every failed logon writes a security event, event ID 4625, A successful one writes 4624. So the hunt is simple to say find any single account that racked up a pile of 4625 and in a few minutes. That's not a typo, that's a machine. And there it is on the authentication monitor. One account, admin, one source address, 240 failed logons in under 10 minutes. The board that's flat and green all night is suddenly a red wall of 4625s all pointing at one name. And there's a detail the pros read next, the status code. Most of those failures carry 0xC0006A bad password. That's the tell. Bad password means the username is real and only the password is wrong, which is exactly what guessing looks like. Becomes more if it were 0xC000064 user does not exist, you would be looking at someone guessing usernames instead. Same storm, different code, different story. So we turn it into a rule in Microsoft Sentinel using KQL. We read the security event table, keep only event ID for 6, 2, and 5, and then summarize, count the failures for each target account and source address, bucketed into 10-minute bins. And then one line does the work where fails is greater than 10, one account, one source, more than 10 failures in 10 minutes. That is not a human fat fingering a password, that is a guessing attack. Not a signature, a behavior, same logic in Splunk against the Windows event log index becomes more filter event code 4625 pin the time into 10-minute spans, count by account name and source address, and keep only the bursts above the threshold. Two platforms, one behavior. Now the professional note, because this rule will cry wolf if you let it. A service account with a stale saved password will hammer 4625s all day. Exclude the known ones. A VPN or Wi-Fi reconnect storm can fire a dozen failures in a blink. Expected. A misconfigured app pointed at the wrong password will look identical to an attack, so tune those out. But here's the move that makes the rule sing alert harder when the burst ends in a success. 100 is suspicious. 100 followed by a 4624 is a confirmed breach. Watch for the burst, but hunt the burst that turns green. Now we investigate becomes more, build the timeline. When did the burst start and when did it stop? How many failures against exactly which account? Then the pivot, the one question that changes everything. Was there a 4624 success from that same source right after the failures ended? Because that single 4624 is the line between we blocked an attempt and they're inside. If it succeeded, pivot immediately. What did that account touch next? Which shares, which hosts, which logons followed? The guessing was the knock. You are now hunting what walked in, and there's a nasty twist. A senior analyst always keeps in mind account lockout cuts both ways. Becomes more if you've set a lockout policy, say lock after 5 bad tries, then a brute force can lock the account out and become an accidental denial of service, and a clever attacker can use that on purpose, deliberately locking out real users to cause chaos. Which is also why patient attackers throttle. They guess slowly, staying just under your lockout threshold. One attempt every few minutes, so they never trip the lock and never spike your dashboard. Fast and loud is easy to catch. Slow and low is the one that tests whether you're really watching. So how do we shut these down? Start with the lock itself. An account lockout policy is sane threshold with a cooldown, so 1,000 guesses simply can't run. Becomes more than the real answer, multi-factor authentication, because even the correct password guessed perfectly is useless without the second factor. Then kill the word list's power, long, strong, unique passwords, and a banned password list that refuses the common ones rockyou is built from. And finally, the monitoring, we just built alert on failure bursts and alert louder on burst into success. Config first, then the watch, and now my favorite move, deception. We plant a honey account, a decoy user, call it Civ backup admin that looks juicy and privileged but is wired to nothing and used by no one. No human, no script, no service will ever log into it, which means it has exactly one possible visitor. An attacker guessing his way through account names. Becomes more so, we put a single screaming alert on any authentication attempt against it. No thresholds, no tuning, no false positives, because a login attempt on an account that no one should ever touch is a guilty verdict on the first try. Let's log this in interview style, because you will be asked these. What's the difference between password guessing and password spraying? Which Windows event IDs tell the story? And what does the status code 0xC00006A actually mean? Why is one failed logon worthless but a count of them is gold? What's the single most important pivot after you spot a brute force? And how can account lockout become a denial of service for and against the attacker? Pause the video, answer each one out loud if you can. You own this technique. Becomes more, and with that, the burst is caught, the account is locked. MFA stands behind the password, and the one guess that worked leads nowhere. XCerberous is protected. Tonight you saw how attackers throw a word list at a single account, why online guessing is loud in your 4625s, how we detect the burst in Sentinel and Splunk, why the pivot to a 4624 success is everything, and how lockout, MFA, and a single honey account shut the whole thing down. Before you go, thank you. Truly, every minute you spend here is a minute you become harder to breach, and that is the whole point of this channel. If this made even one attack easier for you to catch, then we did our job tonight. So do a few quick things for me. Becomes more subscribe and turn on notifications so the next breakdown reaches you the moment it drops. Leave a comment and tell me which technique you want to see next, and share this with someone in the cyber world who needs it, because the more defenders who can see this coming, the safer all of us are. Thank you again for spending this time here. You've been with Cyber Talks with Goutham. Attack, detect, investigate, defend. I'll see you in the next one.